Hello and welcome to your NARSA weekly update for the week commencing Monday the 28th of April 2025. That's the last one here in April. Honestly, where does the time go? Even in this complete utter balls up of a season, the time still seems to be flipping by. It can't be because of Rangers, it must be because of something else that's happening in the world. It's Gary here again, of course, and yeah, well, I mean, I guess talking about the time, we are one game closer to the end of the season, and we are doing what we have done basically for the majority of the season, which is kind of be a wee bit all over the place during one single individual game. And I'll get to that very briefly, very briefly actually, here in just a wee second. But of course, this was a poignant weekend this past weekend in terms of the championship, and I have to say, credit where it is due. When you win a championship, I'm not above congratulations to the winners. So I'd like to just wish a very hearty congratulations to Liverpool Football Club. It was great to see them get their 20th championship yesterday with an absolutely resounding victory over Tottenham there, and very well deserved. They made a wee bit of hard work of it towards the end of the season, but talk about an emphatic way to do it. The scenes at Anfield were great in and around the stadium, and the way that the players and the management staff and the fans all just came together as one was absolutely incredible. And that's them now equal with Manchester United atop the charts there in terms of 20 championships each. So that's absolutely brilliant. And all joking aside, I'm sure you thought I was going to say something else there, but I would like to wish a hearty congratulations also to Wrexham for getting promoted up to the Championship in England. That's, what's that, 2 or 3 promotions in a row for Deadpool and that other guy and their merry band of men and women down there in Wrexham. That's a great news story. And one that I'm sure they're absolutely enjoying down there. Now they're in the big leagues. You know, the Championship is not to be sniffed at, and it's certainly a bit of a shopping ground for Rangers. So we might be starting to compete with Wrexham now for players, which is a wee bit surreal after having watched the first couple of seasons of Welcome to Wrexham on, what's that on? Is it on Apple or the Disney Channel? I can't remember where I watch it now. And yeah, so that's good. So Liverpool and Wrexham doing what they need to do. Of course, as I mentioned last week, their Leeds did indeed confirm the promotion, as did Burnley, and I think they have to still yet decide who is going to win the championship there to get back there. I'm sure that there's bragging rights and some financial incentives to doing that as well, which is kind of somewhat material for us in terms of the ongoing takeover too. So yeah, lots and lots of important victories for very important teams in terms of their championships and their aspirations. And congratulations to everyone else. I'll be saying the very exact same thing to Rangers a wee bit earlier, hopefully this time next season. On to the game segment. As I said there, it's the 2-2 draw away in the most beautiful town in Europe there against St Mirren was just everything in one game, wasn't it? You know, the folks say it's in one microcosm. It's just, we got everything from Rangers, you know, everything that we're used to seeing from this particular team, this particular squad. You know, we scored a couple of decent goals and we gave a couple of garbage ones away. It wasn't a great game, especially the first half was a tough watch, and we did not have a lot of people down at the supporters club. So it was a heavy going one for us, but we got a chance to just have a bit of a catch up and a blether as we are watching what is unfolding in the game. And you know, Barry Ferguson said afterwards, I think, and he absolutely nailed it. No one fears playing Rangers anymore. In fact, I think it's the opposite way. I think they actually look forward to playing Rangers now, home and away. Ibrox has become nothing in terms of a fortress, which is weird because at the beginning of the season, or certainly for about 2/3 of the season, Ibrox was the only shining light of the domestic season for us in terms of our ability to get results there, and it just hasn't turned out that way at all. The goals we lost were terrible, the mistakes we made, the effort from certain players. I was listening to, who was I listening to? It must have been David Edgar from the Heart and Hand podcast, and he was saying it's kind of like, when you're working your notice at work, you're still there, you're still trying to be professional, you're going to do the bare bones of your job, but you're not going to put in extra monumental effort because your mind's already elsewhere. And that's the kind of feel that they've got from some of these players. Now, these players, I imagine, have absolutely zero clue or understanding what the future is going to hold for them in terms of leadership saying or committing to, listen, if you have a good season this season, we promise we'll let you go at the end of the season. We know you have your heart set on this move to insert name of club here. I don't think anybody knows anything like that, but the players now are just, it looks like they're saying, we've got second, we're not playing for anything else, so I'm not going to get myself injured between now and the end of the season and put anything else in jeopardy. That's what it feels like. I wouldn't say that pulling out of tackles or doing anything like that. It's just a collective attitude and effort that you can see, you can feel it. And if you've ever transitioned from one job to another, from one company to another, or maybe even just within a department or something like that, you know you're not absolutely the best, but you're gonna give them what they need so that they're not gonna they're not going to dock your wages or anything like that and say you're a disgrace. You need to owe us money. But that's basically what we've got with this particular game. And St Mirren more than deserved the point. And their manager came out afterwards and says he's disappointed he never got three. And I can kind of see why that is the case. So that's really all I want to say about this game. I'm not going to dissect it very much, and it'll be the same for the remainder of the games, maybe apart from this weekend coming. But the positives, we didn't get beat and we're one game closer to the end, and we didn't suffer any real injuries. It looks like Robin Proper got a bit of an injury, but other than that, there's nothing much doing there. The negatives, it's just the same old, same old. We've seen this movie so many times, it's just getting boring. Now, in terms of the stats, apparently we had 61% possession, 9 shots on goal with 4 on target. We scored 2 of those 4, so 50% return rate in terms of the goals. 2 chances, that's pretty good. And of course, the St Mirren had, St Mirren had 7 shots with 3 on target, scored 2 of them, so they got like a 66% return on theirs. The goals I thought we scored were good. The two finishes, as I mentioned earlier there. I should go back to the positives a wee bit here. Cyril Dessers and Nico Raskin getting some good finishes, which are nice to see, I guess, but it's just off after that. In terms of the referee, I don't really know this guy too much, and whatever. I mean, he had a weird haircut. That hairline is something like, as a baldy guy, I should be counselling him or coaching him, since that's my profession now, and saying, listen, man, that has to go. You have to do something with that, because that was offensive to people both with hair and without hair, I would imagine. So he's going to get 7 out of 10 because I didn't even really properly analyse what he was doing, to be perfectly honest with you. In terms of the next games, of course, as I mentioned there very briefly, we play that Mob on Sunday, the 4th of May, and that's an early kickoff. I believe that's 7 a.m. Eastern Standard Time kickoff. I don't actually have that in my notes for this week, so I'm not 100% sure, but it's either going to be 7 or 7:30 a.m. and that actually will be the last one we show live at Pinbar for the season, because the next one is a very early game, which we typically don't open for because we don't get that many people down. And the next one's a midweek game, which we don't subscribe to for RTV. And then the last one's an early one as well. So hopefully we'll get a wee bit of folks coming down just to say a quick cheerio. We'll organise a season ender at some point, which will be me and my family and maybe a couple of other people, Alex and Lorelei and Hammy maybe. And that'll probably be it. And we'll toast that season and thank the good Lord above that season is done, and look forward to better times ahead. That's absolutely what we're hoping to do. But yes, I mean, you obviously want to lay down a marker. It would be ironic if we put down a fantastic performance and gave them another defeat. Again, I'm sure this week we're going to hear and see a whole bunch of stuff about Guard of Honour and all that crap that comes out at this time of the year. And it's ironic that they wrap it up just before the Old Firm game. But I'd love them to ask Barry Ferguson that question, because he's on a bit of a no F's given tour right now, and I'm sure that he would just quite happily say there's no chance that's happening, not on my watch. So we'll see what that looks like. But it'd be good to beat them one last time and just at least have that wee bit of a wee bit of something to celebrate as the season goes on. On to shout out, something a wee bit more cheery. I would like to, this is hot off the press, this one. I would like to welcome the most beautiful and latest addition to the Rangers family, Emily Dallas, who was born today at 11 a.m. UK time, weighing £9, 2 ounces, and mum Kaylee, who is my niece. Kaylee and Dad Scott, who has a great blue nose, and Emily, of course, are doing great. So welcome to the family, Emily. It's great to see you there, and I'm hoping that you are going to enjoy much better times in terms of your Rangers supporting fortunes than your big brother Aaron has over the last few years. But great news, great to see Scott and Kelly, such a wonderful couple, doing so great, and she's just a gorgeous wee thing as well. So absolutely brilliant to see, absolutely fantastic to see, quite honestly. And while we're keeping the good news going, the women's team absolutely slammed Aberdeen in the Scottish Gas Women's Scottish Cup semi-final at Hampden on the weekend, 5-0, and Joe Potter came out afterwards and said that was okay, it wasn't good enough. 5-0 is great, but we didn't play that great, so just to rub it into Aberdeen a wee bit more. There's more to come from this team, so I hope that's the case, and they have set up a final appearance against Glasgow City, so that's going to be a real game towards the end of the month. I did actually do a bit of research last night to see what the date was and couldn't find it anywhere, so the end of the month-ish sometime, and that would be, hopefully that will be the team going for the treble after they can, or as soon as they go forward and start to pick up the points they need to pick up to get this league title wrapped up. And speaking of that, they are playing against Glasgow City on Wednesday in a crucial league match, and they need to get the results of that, and of course still playing Hibs towards the end of the season as well to try and overhaul them. So it's going to be very, very interesting, but congratulations to Jo Potter and her team for doing that. And there was the announcement of the Player of the Year, the Internal Club Player of the Year awards, and I'll just go through some of the highlights, not every single one. The Sam English Bowl for the top scorer was given to Stephen Ironside from the NARSA chat. If you're listening to the podcast, please skip forward about 3 or 4 seconds now, and then you'll be okay after this. It was given to Cyril Dessers. Stephen is not a fan at all. Actually, he's not the only one, to be very, very fair, but he has 24 goals thus far this season has given him the top scorer accolades there, and the Sam English Bowl that goes with that. And the top scorer on the women's side, which is the Jane Ross plate, goes to Katie Wilkinson, and the John Gregg CBE Achievement Award went to John Suter, and the Women's Player of the Year was Katie Wilkinson, which was voted by the players, and it was Brogan Hay, which was voted by the fans there. And the Men's Player of the Year, both by the players and the fans award, was Nico Raskin. You can see on the Rangers website the other awards in terms of what the Academy's doing and goals and such. I guess the one notable one was goal of the season was Hamza Igaman at Sharkhead there, and the winning goal towards the end of the last Old Firm game there. But yeah, it's one of these things in the Player of the Year awards. I know what it's like, even just running the team that I run over here in Calgary, even when we have a stink bomb season, and we had a stink bomb season indoor there where we finished in last place with a game to go, we still had our season ender, we still did the awards, we still celebrated the fact that we were together, and the effort that everyone put in, that just wasn't to be. We were just in too high a division, to be perfectly honest. So hopefully outdoor, which starts on the 13th of May, will be a wee bit kinder to us, and we'll get a chance to get some victories in there, because we didn't have many indoor. But yeah, it's one of these things, we shouldn't be throwing stuff like that out just because the season ended up not going anywhere close to the way that we thought it was going to go, and that's just the way that it goes. So congratulations to all the winners there as well. And I wasn't sure whether to do this in the communication section or the shout outs, but I think it's probably more of a shout out, and it's just a welcome to Rangers Football Club, but for the sporting director Kevin Thelwell, who was kind of announced fairly speedily last week. I remember listening to it on the Heart and Hand Daily Update, and it was a few hours later, so I don't know if David had a specific bead internally that it was coming out, but the announcement was made very, very quickly, which is kind of good. If these things are rumouring on and on and on for such a long time, it ends up becoming a distraction for everyone involved. And remember when we were, looking through the CEO stuff what would that be? Kind of around about the autumn time last year, and it just dragged on and on and on. And then finally we got Patrick in place, and he's been doing what he's needed to do since then. So congratulations and welcome aboard. It didn't say when he was actually joining. I don't know if there's a specific date on that. The article on the Rangers website didn't give a specific date, just upon the conclusion of his contract with Everton. And I imagine that would either be at the end of May or the end of June, something like that. But I dare say that he's spending some of his spare time, not when he's being paid by Everton, but in his spare time getting himself geared up for what's coming his way as the sporting director of Rangers. We've had a couple of these before, and we've had successes and maybe not so much successes with them too. So this will be a different challenge and proposition for Kevin as he comes in, because the club are going to be, of course, under the takeover conditions, and there's going to be a whole bunch of newness in there. So he's going to have to kind of hit the ground running pretty quickly, as a sprinting, let me just say, as soon as his appointment is ratified, and well, as soon as he officially starts in terms of his contractual start date. And just another reminder in terms of the shout outs for the Melbourne City Loyal Rangers Supporters Club Culture Weekend, November 21st to 22nd, and that has Ian Ferguson, Gary Stevens and Stuart Monroe all going, and there's a whole bunch of detail there. I'll leave the link to their Facebook group on the show notes, of course, like I do all the time, up to and including November of this year. On the convention update, well, here's goes. With 45 days and 6 weeks until we descend upon Kissimmee in Osceola County in Florida. That's June the 12th to the 15th at Omni at Champions Gate. That's the hotel, of course. And do you know what? We're kind of struggling to get some information back from the Omni Hotel as to exactly what our next steps are. As I sit here right now, the convention is 100% going ahead, as far as I believe and understand, and all parties that are involved in the planning are working towards the same, but the dialogue is not where it could and should be from an Omni perspective. So we really have to get that figured out today or tomorrow, and make sure that we're all exactly on the same page, because I don't want anything to affect the guest experience for the folks that are going to show up to this event for this year. I know there'll be some latecomers in terms of booking tickets and such, and that's to be expected. And it's going to be a smaller event, and it's going to be a bit more intimate, and that's going to bring with it its own benefits. The smaller events are always just more easier to handle, easier to manage, and it gives us an opportunity to mingle with folks that we might not have an opportunity typically when the events are a little bit larger from an organisation committee perspective too. So yeah, just need the Omni to kind of get back with the programme in terms of communication, and then we'll be in great shape. We do have a meeting with Rangers, our bi-weekly meeting with Rangers this coming Wednesday, where we'll start to kind of finalise some of the final details and such. These meetings have been going on now for a very long time, and it's been great to continue to work with the club on that. Just another reminder, if you're on a UK passport, that you will need an ESTA to get to the States, and whatever Donald Trump decides else that you need between now and the 12th of June, and we'll see how it goes there. There is actually a federal election here in Canada today. I wonder if I should have maybe said that on the shout-outs. And as a permanent resident of Canada, I don't get to vote. I'm not too disappointed about that, to be perfectly honest, but it's going to be quite interesting to see what happens in terms of relations with our southern neighbours once the new Prime Minister has been elected. That'll be later tonight or first thing tomorrow morning sort of thing, and we'll see how it goes. Yeah, other than that, tickets are on sale. Room bookings are still available for booking, and we have all the other entertainment work and such that will be communicated as this week goes on. Everything is basically just ready to rock and roll on that one. But yeah, I have to say I'm a wee bit frustrated in terms of the communication cadence that we're not having right now. It doesn't help us move forward with clarity and such, so hopefully we'll get that ironed out and move forward from there. And one other thing that will be happening, of course, at the AGM is our annual general meeting. No, one thing that will be happening at the AGM is our annual general meeting. All right, Gary. One thing that will be happening at the convention is our AGM, and we do have some positions open. So if you if you are interested in joining the committee, we would love to have a conversation with you and see where you think you would add value and be a good fit, and see what next steps looks like for us. I think we need to do some things to help us move with the times, let's just say, and I can talk more about that at the AGM. In terms of the communication, the Gers guide, I kind of forgot to look for it today. There will be highlights of the women's victory at Hampden, of course, against Aberdeen. There will be probably lowlights of the St Mirren game. There'll be a loan review tomorrow. There will be some other bits and pieces, I am sure, in terms of the week going forward as we gear up to the last real big game of the season for us, which of course is the Old Firm game this weekend. I would imagine the press conference for that would be on Friday, with the game being on Sunday, and Wednesday, of course, is the women's game, against Glasgow City. So if you're following that, you'll be able to see that on the socials and such. And then we have the game on the Sunday. So yeah, Gaz's version of the Gers guide, because I just kind of forgot to do that. And just one last thing in terms of communication for this week. You might have seen it on the website last week that they had the CEO fans forum, of course, last Wednesday night, and they got the outputs of that out very quickly, a quick turnaround time, which is great. It was hosted by Head of Communications Nick Thompson. He was joined by our Chief Financial Officer James Taylor, our Chief Communications and Marketing Officer Greg Mailer, and Business Growth Director Natalie Nairn. And they discussed the appointment, amongst other things, they discussed the appointment of Sporting Director Kevin Thelwell, which I discussed a wee bit earlier there. They talked about some of the day-to-day operations, clarification in terms of being free from having to run absolutely everything by the board, which probably caused delays and frustration, I imagine. So day-to-day operations have been handed over to, wow, shocker, the day-to-day operations people to help the club run a bit smoother. So that's a bit of progress right there. They talked about we are indeed going with Umbro under the Castor, what would that be, Castor licensing agreement or arrangement that they have for Umbro. They talked about some stadium upgrades and the fact that we're not going to have anything like the garbage bizarreness that we had with the Copeland stand earlier this season. There's some toilet upgrades and such, I believe. And Greg Mailer talked about his priorities being to build trust and relationships with the fans and to support the ongoing work with the matchday experience and promote and defend the club's reputation. Do you know what, Greg? We've had a lot of communications folks that have come through the door that have said they will defend the club's reputation, and we kind of haven't seen that. We've had that, we've written to, and we are very disappointed in and by, but I don't know if that has been backed up with a lot of action. Certainly a lot of things can happen in the background, but we need a wee bit more public defending, I think, is probably what we'd like to see, and not just a strongly worded article on the website, but some affirmative action and maybe changes in behaviour from there. So I look forward to hopefully getting an opportunity to chat to Greg at some point to see where we can help from a NARSA perspective as we go forward. But yeah, you've got a lot of work on your hands with the club. There was information around ticketing, the ticketing platform and such, a wee bit of information about my Gers in terms of mostly about ticket allocations for upper tier members of the My Gers scheme, and there was a wee bit of dialogue around alcohol being sold at the grounds. And I think this is a topic that's not going away. And it seems to be something that is certainly worthy of consideration or reconsideration, I guess is probably the right way to say it. This is a massive revenue generator for the clubs, for each of the clubs in Scottish football. I understand and know the reasons why it was taken away before, because people couldn't behave properly. But under appropriate conditions, you can enjoy a beer at the game in safety if nobody's throwing anything or getting bladdered out of their brain and getting lifted and all that kind of thing. There's a way to do this with a little bit of class and a little bit of etiquette and a little bit of forethought and such. Of course, this is a political decision. It's not an SFA decision, but it would be good to have those conversations kind of quickly. And if you want, you can move these things forward pretty quickly, especially when there's a common desire from absolutely everyone, including the police, if you have them involved in the discussions and decisions at the same time. So we'll see how that one goes. But yeah, certainly something that would be that we are very much behind many other sports, even in the UK, and in terms of our ability to be able to enjoy a beverage during said games that we go to watch. All right, folks, so I did my best to avoid the football part of it for this week. We'll see what comes up in terms of our ongoing discussions the with the hotel and such for the convention, and hopefully you'll see a wee bit more activity coming out this week in terms of guests and such announcements, more along the entertainment lines than anything else. So that's going to do it for this week, my friends. Thank you very, very much, as always, for taking the time to tune in, and I really do appreciate you doing that, especially for the tail end of this season, which has been a bit of a damp squib to date. Please do share it with someone you think might enjoy it and have a wee bit of a laugh for it. And I've got some good news. There's only 19 days and 4 games to go until we wrap this season up. 19 days and 4 games to go, and then we just never talk about this again. Please do take care of yourself, and all the very best. Until next week, follow.